Imagine moving into your dream home, only to find out your neighbor has been stealing your water for years. But instead of confronting him, I quietly flipped a switch and watched his world fall apart. If you've ever wanted to serve cold, calculated revenge to someone who thought they'd never get caught, you're going to love this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and buckle up, because this one's not just satisfying, it's deliciously brutal. I live in Asia, and not long ago, I scored an unbelievable deal on a house right in the capital city. It belonged to family friends who had been living abroad for over 3 years and urgently needed the money. It was a fixer-upper, sure, but for the price? Totally worth it. What I didn't realize at the time was, the house came with baggage. Literal, entitled, neighborly baggage. When I first moved in, the house was barely secured. Just a padlock on the door. No front gate. Anyone could stroll into the driveway like it was public property. And, of course, on day one, someone did. I walked into my new garage, and there it was. A stranger's motorcycle parked like he owned the place. I wheeled it out onto the road, got a gate installed that very day, and ignored the angry knocking at the door that came later. Through my window, I saw a furious man pacing, eventually giving up and dragging his bike away. That should have been my first clue. This neighborhood didn't care much for boundaries. But I brushed it off. I was excited. It was my home now. I posted a clear no parking sign and started getting things in order. For a while, things were quiet, until the water pressure started acting weird. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon while I was taking a shower. The stream went from strong to feeble in seconds, just as I heard the deep, mechanical whir of a water pump starting next door. Now, this neighbor, let's call him Mr. Chow, wasn't just anyone. He was the grumpy old man who lived in the 3-story house next door. He stayed on the ground floor and rented out the top 2 to tenants. I already knew from my friends, the previous owners, that Mr. Chow had hated the idea of this house being sold. Apparently, he'd voiced his frustrations loud and clear, complaining that the new owner might ruin the peace. My friends warned me, but I wasn't too worried. I'm 6 feet tall, have 3 dogs, and no patience for entitled neighbors. Still, the water pressure thing bugged me. I tested a theory. I waited until I heard his pump turn off, then turned on my taps again. Full pressure. It didn't feel like a coincidence. And something clicked. This guy might be siphoning water from my supply. It would make sense. When the house sat empty for years, water bills were suspiciously high. The assumption had always been that it was due to leaks. But now, I wasn't so sure. I checked my lines, looked for signs of tampering, but couldn't find the exact spot. Still, the timing didn't lie. So I sat on it for a few days. I had options. Confront him, call the police, let it go. I mean, the water itself was cheap. My monthly bill barely hit $5, even with 3 dogs, a car to wash, and a thirsty garden. But it wasn't about money. It was about principle. The entitlement. The gall. The sheer disrespect of using something that wasn't his, and acting like he'd earned the right. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want drama. I wanted consequences. And I found the perfect way to deliver them. On Monday, I waited. I heard his pump kick in, and with a casual flick of the wrist, I shut off my water from the mains. Now here's the thing about water pumps in our country. They're connected to rooftop tanks using ball valves that open when water is low. If the tank doesn't fill, the valve stays open. That sends a signal to the pump to keep running. But no water equals no increase in level equals eternal pump hell. Anyone with basic knowledge knows that starving a pump of water is dangerous. It overheats. It breaks. It burns out. But I wasn't prepared for just how devastating the results would be. Everything went dark. Around 3 a.m., I heard voices. Confused. Panicked. His tenants were out on their balconies, murmuring loudly, then yelling. It wasn't just the water that had stopped. The power had gone out too. Turns out, Mr. Chow's outdated 90s era wiring couldn't handle the constant electrical load from the pump running overnight. The fuse box melted down, and the wiring fried. Water gone. Power gone. Just like that. By morning, chaos reigned next door. Tenants were furious. One stormed out that very day, dragging a suitcase behind her. The other stayed just long enough to file a formal complaint with the police. And here's the kicker. Tenant laws here are strict. Power and water are essential services. Failing to provide them, instant grounds for fines. No court needed. Mr. Chow was slapped with a $500 fine, a fortune for someone on a pension. He also had to refund both tenants' deposits, thousands more. And because the electrical and plumbing systems were now considered unsafe, he legally couldn't rent again until they were professionally upgraded. He was done. I watched from my living room window as his life began unraveling, and a few days later, he came to my gate. He stood there, stiff and awkward, and asked, "Did you turn off your water?" I met his gaze and replied smoothly, "Oh, yeah. I had a leak in one of the pipes. Had to wait for the plumber to come fix it the next day." He blinked. No emotion. Just a slow nod. "Oh, okay." But his eyes said everything. He knew. And I didn't care. Because there was nothing he could do. I wasn't breaking any laws. I didn't touch his property. All I did was mind my own business and shut off the water to my own home. The irony was poetic. I wasn't done either. I brought in a plumber and had him seal off every line that left my property. No more siphoning. No more stealing. Mr. Chow is moving out this Sunday. He can't afford to live alone anymore. He's going to his daughter's house, tail between his legs, pride shattered. His only source of income, gone. All because he thought he could steal from me without consequences. I didn't lift a finger in anger. No screaming. No threats. No cops. Just silence. And the sound of karma doing its job. He tried to steal water, and ended up drowning in the consequences. You know, they say what goes around, comes around. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud or messy. It's silent, precise, untraceable, just like flipping off a tap. If this story gave you chills, go ahead and smash that like button. Tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or done yourself? And if you want more stories like this, where justice is served without a single word, make sure to subscribe. I've got plenty more coming.